Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. Of course, it's another game week preview, game week 15, I do believe. I think quite a crazy and uplifting Tuesday night. There's a lot to talk about, as these every week, but a lot more positive. Of course, Southend United, also Scunthorpe United have both had the takeovers that they've been dying for. So we'll come on to them very shortly. But also, there was a lot of late drama in the National League, a lot of last-minute limbs. As you can see, I'm very happy because we won in the last minute against Woking away from home. Of course, York fans won at Dagenham away from home. Unfortunately, Paul to the left of me may not be as positive on his team, of course, losing. But I think you could take quite a lot of positives away from that, going to somewhere like Gateshead and, putting up a decent performance there. But before we come on to that, Paul, firstly, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm very well. Thank you very much. Yeah, I wasn't able to make the long trip to Gateshead on Tuesday, but there's been lots to suggest that we were the best team that's been there so far and given them the toughest game, which is always quite nice to hear when you're a Wealdstone fan. But ultimately, it's points on the board, and Gateshead are doing that at this present time, and Wealdstone aren't. So, as much as you play well, I think we'd all take a bit of a scrappy 1-0, 2-1 win, however it is, just to try and get some points on the board.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? It's not, with this division, it's not really about the performances, I'd say. It's more about just getting the results which you need, because Wealdstone at the moment, it's a bit difficult to really call what their expectations are, because I think you've mentioned the first expectation is to survive this season. But if, let's say, I wouldn't say more ambitious, but the Wealdstone fans that might be a little bit more optimistic might say, we want to aim for the playoffs this season based off how well we performed last season. Games like that's when you really do need to be holding out to at least get a point. But no, we'll come on to Wealdstone very shortly. We'll come on to all the teams shortly. But please remember to check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. Also, drop them a follow on social media. You can find them on Twitter at Cards Accepted. Please help those who sponsor the podcast. Of course, they offer a discount if you use the link in the description, 50% off your order on a card machine, no contracts or monthly fees. So yeah, like I've mentioned, a lot to talk about tonight, but something came on my Twitter earlier today, and I've been waiting quite a few weeks, to see this pop up, because it's probably one of the greatest Halifax matches I've ever been to, and it's got me onto one of the quite a good talking point tonight, and it's on comebacks. Now, I'm going to put this video on screen, then I'm basically going to tell you what happened in the game. If they are Notts County fans that still tune in, they might not tune in after this, basically. But yeah, let's put it on anyway. Greatest nights ever watching Halifax. Let's say this one. We were 2-0 down against Notts County. We went down to 10 men. We somehow clawed it back, and not only to get a point, but to go on to win the game in like the 90 plus 10 minutes. And that got me onto a good topic that I thought we could bring up tonight. Greatest comebacks your side has ever had. Paul, is there any off the top of your head that you can recall, Wealdstone?
In recent memory, I suppose there was one where the most memorable, there's two really. When we were in the National League South, we played Weymouth away on a August bank holiday, and I think we went 3-1 down, maybe 3-2, and we ended up winning 4-3. Ross Lafayette scored a hat-trick and literally scored in the last minute. I mean, the last kick of the game to make it 4-3, and they were dead on their feet. And then the other one, I guess, as comebacks go, when we got into the playoffs the year before we won promotion, last game of the season, we were outside of the playoffs. And we played Hemel Hempstead Town at home, and they were winning at half time. Hemel were winning at half time, and other results were going against us rather. So at half time of that match, we were dead and buried. We weren't going in the playoffs. There was no two ways about it. We clawed it back, and we scored a brilliant goal. I can't remember now whether it was draw or win, but coupled with our results, we have 4 or 5 other results that go for us. And within the 45 minutes, we went from being 10th or 11th to 7th and ended up being the playoffs. We played Bath. Unfortunately, we beat Bath, but we lost to Woking. And I suppose those two really, as I say, with that as a comeback, although we didn't come back and win the game in the manner that Halifax did then, the fact we came back from sort of being dead and buried and nowhere near the playoffs to being in it within the last few minutes of the season.
There's a lot of sides into this season that that have that determination and that resilience to get back into games. Of course, Tuesday night's game, Halifax coming back at Woking, maybe not as dramatic. Same with York coming back against Dagenham. I believe there's another one as well that I haven't mentioned there, but I want to hear in the live chat.
Barnet, didn't they?
Barnet, yeah.
96 minutes.
But also, I want to hear in the live chat, what's the greatest comeback that you guys have had your sides? It doesn't have to be in the National League, it can be in the league below, the league above. But I know the one off the top of my head is definitely that one against Notts County, being 2-0 down. I remember I brought my mate to that game and he was a Huddersfield fan. And it was his first game ever going where it was on non-league. So I think a lot of fans from the higher leagues, have put their nose up against the lower leagues maybe. And I remember going into that game, we're saying, do you even have an atmosphere? Have you ever experienced limbs? And brought him to that game 2-0 down. And I remember when we went through, even when we drew 2-2, the atmosphere was just insane. And then to go on to win it was utter carnage. And, they are good times that probably will never, ever be replicated again. But yeah, before we get on to the rest of what we've got to talk about tonight, we'll come to the live chat. We want to hear what you guys have been saying. A lot of comments have been in. We'll see what the first person has been saying then, if we can get all the way back to the top of where the comments are. There we go. So the first person in is of course a Notts County supporter. So good timing, Ian, to come into the live stream. I don't know if you're still here after that. Evening all. So pleased for all Southend and Scunny fans this week. Hope you now turned a corner. Paul then. Barry's coming.
Yeah, even all from a Daggers fan. Hello, Barry. Nice to see you online.
And then we've had Callum who's coming and said, evening, lads. Welcome to the stream, Callum.
Hayden's how we all doing? Yeah, doing well, Hayden.
And then we've had our regular Maidstone fan who's come in and given us a wave. Welcome back. You're not going too bad yourselves, are you, in the league below? I think they're inside the playoffs now.
Come on, Luke, you're slacking. I don't know what that must mean,
yeah.
Luke.
It's because we did. Don't blame me. It's because Paul were looking for his reading glasses and he couldn't find them. And then we've had Ian who's come back in. And Barry, how is Frank Vincent doing for you? And then we've had...
I could tell him how Frankie Vincent's doing. When he played against Millstone, he was the best player on the park by a country mile. 100 almost felt like he was in a different gear. Very, very good footballer in that midfield for Dagenham. So yeah, I don't know how he's done apart from that, but I was very impressed when I saw him.
To be fair, I know he was a player that I wanted Halifax to look for in the summer because he's come from playing under a number of not experienced managers, but managers that play a nice brand of football. Neil Hardley and Birchnell, and of course, finally Luke Williams. And he would have just fitted perfectly into our system, but unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Who's this who's coming then?
Chris Lever has said, good morning from Melbourne, all the way down under. So good morning, good evening, Chris. Yeah.
And then we've had Keza who's come in and said, hello, welcome to the stream, Keza, a regular listener from the north. And then we've had
David Simos. Hello, evening all. Hiya, David.
I believe he's a Maidenhead fan, so they'll be happy after that result, won't they, against Oldham? And then Ian said, nice intro, Luke. Mr. Luke's coming with his massive paragraph again.
Hello, gents. Hope you're well. Sending my condolences to Paul for that loss against us. You were the best side I've seen Gateshead play this season at the GIS. Hope you love my message, Paul. Yeah, it's very good. Thank you, Mr. Luke.
Cheers. Right, and then we've had David who's come in. I don't know if this is a positive or not. He said Luke's got a sick haircut. You know what? I had a haircut I went for a haircut last week, basically. And I always go for I don't know if you can tell on here, but I always go for the skin fade. I have for the past year or so because I just think it looks smart. And the guy that I had, it's expensive. He forgot to do, like, I don't know if you can tell there, but the sides there. So what I had to do, I didn't really notice it. Went to school the next day, well, to college, what it is now, and everyone noticed then. Let's put it this way. So got home, had to get shaver and then shave it all off. So yeah, it's not as neat now. So I don't know if you're taking the mick there, David, or if you genuinely do think it's a good haircut. Callum's coming though.
We got a clean sheet again. I know I'm shocked as well. So yeah, well done, Callum. There's clean sheets win matches.
Everyone's loving my haircut. Great haircut, Luke. Looks sharp. Cheers for that, Ian. And then we've had,
So from Stingham, FA Cup hasn't been very kind to us, giving Torquay away 2 weeks in a row. How was the draw for everyone else? Well, I can talk for Wealdstone. We were bitterly disappointed. We got Bromley away. I think they're probably the most informed team in the southern part of the draw. Last year we got whoever was near the top. I can't remember who we played now. The year before we got Dagenham and Redbridge, who were so it seems to like the last 4 or 5 years, we seem to have probably got the best team that's in our side of the draw. So it was a little bit despondent from the Stones fans. We were hoping that a cup run might change our fortunes a bit.
I know, like Halifax, we've got Marine at home. So that's like, usually every seat you'd say you can't ask for a better draw than that. But Marine have got a bit of a history, haven't they, in the FA Cup? I remember them playing Tottenham during COVID. That's horrid, that, when you get a side like that drawn at home and you're not allowed to go to it. But, you know, them coming to the show, we haven't performed well at home all season. So it's a massive banana skin, that. But, yeah, hopefully that gives us an opportunity to progress. And for me, I wouldn't say I don't take notice of, you know, the qualifying rounds, because I think everyone does. It's not me looking down my nose on the qualifying rounds, because of course it's very important for sides like Marine and sides in the lower leagues, and of course for sides in this division. But for me, it's not something I can ever get buzzing about. I never really get buzzing about the FA Cup until, you know, the first or maybe even second round. I know last season we had St Ives at this stage, and we travelled all the way down. And it was like a massive game for them, and we managed to win quite comfortably and convincingly. And then the following game, we had Ebbsfleet away, and they were just on fire. And then we travelled all the way down for that again, and we got beat there. And it's like, oh, that's a FA Cup run done anyway. But that's something Halifax have never had. We've never had an FA Cup run since I've been supporting them anyway, where we've actually progressed to the third, fourth round, etc. Furthest we've ever got is the second. Have Wealdstone ever had that? Because I don't recall them ever having
a... They played, I think from memory, it was Rotherham whilst they were at the Vale, possibly in the fourth qualifying round or the first round. But no, I mean, if you spoke to Wealdstone fans, the biggest bugbear that they have at the present time is the management team, as much as they're highly regarded, do struggle in the cups. I think we won one cup match. That was in a Middlesex County Cup versus Edgware Town, and we won that on penalties. And apart from that, I don't think they've won a cup match in either the FA Trophy, the Middlesex Cups, or obviously the FA Cup. So, yeah, we're due one. We want one. Financially, it's helpful, but also it's quite good fun. It puts teams on the map, doesn't it? And, you know, the fans want a day out somewhere nice, but it may not be this year again with Bromley away.
Yeah, it's not the most easiest of draws, is it, Bromley away? But someone else has come in. Dale's come in and said evening, and then another fan's come in here.
First time listening live. Normally watch the game day after. So hi, great win for the Shaman. Super Sam Johnson won us that game. Hopefully kick on now. That's from Halifax 1911.
Aaron, I know to be fair, I was speaking to a working lad, and he was saying first half, your keeper's proper dodgy, because I think it was his fault for the first goal. But the save, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the save in the second half, the ball crossed in, and it was like, do you know I don't know if you watched the Newcastle game last night, Paul, but you might have seen the highlights, I'm not sure, but Dan Burns' second goal, he headed it, and the keeper palmed it out, but it crossed the line. it was like the exact same situation. But Sam Johnson managed to keep it out, and it was some save. And then to go on to win it's just epic. Barry has come and said, "Hi lads, we have Oldham on Saturday. What does Paul think of that? What does Paul think of them? Their fans seem to think they should be turning over these smaller teams."
What do I think of Oldham? What do I think of their fans? Oldham as a football team were very disappointing. We saw them sort of huff and puff and almost play for a draw after 60 minutes down at the Vale against little Tin Pot Wealdstone. And then they succumbed to Maidenhead or got a draw in Maidenhead in a week. So, I mean, they've had a proper meltdown in the last 72 hours. And I had some fun Twitter exchanges with some of the Oldham fans who I think are a little bit deluded in thinking that they should be beating teams like that instead of respecting the league. I know the majority of their fan base do. I'm not tarring the whole Oldham fan base with the same brush. There's a handful that even Oldham fans were a little bit disappointed in and disagreed with their attitude towards what they felt should be games that they're winning against the likes of Wealdstone, Maidenhead and Dorking. But listen, Oldham as a football team with Thompson in charge, I don't think are any better than Unsworth. They've got a lot of improving to do if they're going to even trouble the playoffs from what I saw. And to start playing for a 1-1 draw after 60 minutes against someone like Wealdstone, that shouldn't be happening when you're Oldham. That's
what's going to be interesting to see if Oldham do appoint an actual manager. But I think that they'll be looking, won't they? But they're unbeaten in 5 for me. But like you've said, it's kind of like they had that new manager bounce, and then now it's gone a little bit stalemate again. And now they're, I wouldn't say back to square one, but they do need to be looking for a new manager. And it's hard to really go out there and think who are Oldham actually going to bring in, who's going to make a difference. I'm still all for the Cowley brothers coming in, but then they're not going to, I can't see them going to someone like Altrincham and just nicking like Phil Parkinson or going to Gates and then getting Williamson in. Neither with Halifax. I know a few Oldham fans want Millington in as well. So I think if they're going to get anyone, it's going to be someone who's unemployed. And the big names that, they're rumoured with are the likes of, Darren Moore. Well, Darren Moore's obviously gone to Huddersfield now, but he's out of the question now. You've also got the Cowley brothers. I think they're still available.
Darryl Clark went to Cheltenham, didn't he, recently? I think
Warnock as well, isn't they now? If he wanted something a bit different, but
the problem is Bradford City have just sacked their manager.
Yeah.
Gillingham have just sacked their manager. So any of those unemployed managers in and around the National League, League Two, they're now going to be looking at sort of maybe a League Two position rather than National League. Listen, Oldham's a massive project. We spoke about him at length on other pods, and as much as it's a massive challenge, if you get it right, you're going to be a hero. So there's always going to be someone who was going to back themselves. But at this present time, they've got a lot of work to do for their 11 to 15 to improve in the National League. I don't think whoever the manager is, their midfield is so slow and ponderous. It's incredible considering, and I know we hark on about it, 30 years ago they were in the Premier League. You think where they've come from to. And
do you kind of think with Oldham, it's kind of like, the only reason that people have ever said that they're in the title race maybe at the start of the season, obviously they're not now. I think even after those 3 wins, if there were any kind of a few speculation about them being that good where they can compete still, if they went on a massive run, games like drawing to Wealdstone, drawing to Maidenhead shows that they're miles behind Chesterfield. But do you think if you didn't have the name Oldham Athletic with that squad, so let's say you gave Bromley or Bournemouth that squad at the start of the season, would you really say, they're going to go toe-to-toe with Chesterfield come the end of the season?
I mean, you probably would. On paper, it looks an impressive enough squad to maybe challenge at the top end.
I'd say just playoffs, though. I think...
That's what I mean, at the top end. But you'd like to think with Oldham, in terms of the size they are, the club they are, where they've been, what they have behind them, the infrastructure... everyone's not going to discount them at the beginning of the season. They will now because a lot of them have seen them play and realised that they're not as good as we thought they were going to be. But you can't discount someone of that size in this league without a doubt. Until maybe they spend 3 or 4 seasons in this league and realise that it's a lot harder to get out of than they first thought. So, you look at Rochdale; they've just gone along their business. There's not been much murmuring on social media. Their fans haven't given it all the big one, like we said before, and they're just slowly just keeping themselves in that top half, in the playoff positions, picking up points, and that's how it should be. It's similar. I mean, Hartlepool we'll talk about, but they started off that way and have sort of fallen off a cliff a bit. But Oldham just seem to feel like they've got this entitlement to do what they can in the National League because of who they are.
I think when Oldham first came down, I think a lot of people who are coming into this division now are respecting it a lot more. Rochdale fans, there weren't many fans who came down saying, we're going to piss this league. Same with Hartlepool, which you'd expect because they know the league off the back of the hand. But Oldham, when they came down, I thought were quite respectful, but there was always that 20% of that fan base that would literally, disrespect the league. I understand Oldham fans going to play, no disrespect to you, but going to places like Wealdstone, Maidenhead, it's a bit of a culture shock compared to where they were not so long ago. But, Wealdstone deserve to be in this league just as much as what Oldham do. And you've got to respect that. And I think it shows when you can't even defeat sides like Wealdstone and Maidenhead where you are as a football club. Yes, there's a bit of a boost because you've had that takeover now, but you've got to start picking up results against these sides if you really do want to be competing this season, because I think they are 2 better sides than Oldham in this division at this moment in time. So I can't see Oldham getting promoted this season. And then the following season, there's going to be more teams. Southend will probably get stronger with the investment they'll have. You'll have sides that will come down, sides that will come up, sides like Gateshead and Altrincham if they don't get promoted, and a new side that will come out of nowhere. So, they've got to think of a plan, I think, Oldham. Anyway, back to the live chat, Paul.
Evening, lads. Paul, hope you don't hate us too much. What were your thoughts on the Heed's second goal? A brilliant strike. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it came from a midfield error on our part. We gave the ball away too easy in the middle of the park. Then, once you're in the final third, I don't think defensively there was too much wrong with it. I think you just got to put your hands up sometimes and say, it was a goal that deserved to win the match. And, whether he's got that in his locker, I don't know the lad myself, but whether he's got that in the locker to do that regularly or whether that was a one-off, whatever it was a brilliant goal and fitting, I think, of the match because both teams play good football.
Harry's come in and he said Akinayemi with the fire emoji. Of course, he scored late on, and we were going to talk about this, and it might be a good opportunity now to bring it up. Golden Boot winner. Now, at the moment, you've got Dinanga, who's got 12, followed by McCallum and Cardwell, who've both got 10. I think Akinayemi's got 7. But now that York have improved, they're another side. I still don't think of the finished article at all. But they've got a goal scorer. For you, Paul, who would it be that sticks out there? Because it's not as easy as maybe last season when it were between 2 strikers in Langstaff and Mullin.
Well, I think there's no surprise that Paul McCullum's up there, is it? I mean, Eastleigh have gone on a bit of a hot run recently. He's a proven goal scorer at this level and higher. Akinyemi is a little bit of an unknown quantity, having come out of the Scottish leagues. I know he's sort of been in the British leagues, but coming out of the Scottish league, he looks an absolute handful. I mean, even when they played Wealdstone and didn't win the game, he was the one that looked like the threat. I think the surprise is Cardwell, isn't it, from Southend? I don't suppose that would have been on anybody's sort of radar in terms of being the amount of goals that he's scored. And I can see them continuing. But definitely the one in the driving seat and the one that looks hot is Dinanga. I mean, again, I saw him on Tuesday night in fits and starts on the telly, and he looks very, very useful. And if Gateshead play the way they do throughout this season, he's going to get an awful lot of chances because they create chances for him. And if you've got someone who's confident enough to get, 12? Did you say 12 goals in? Yeah. However,
14 appearances.
Games, so 12 and 14 is a really, really good return. And the only thing that might happen is someone higher up the food chain picks up Cardwell, picks up Dinanga. Not sure with Akinyemi because he might be on a good contract at York, but that they might not become Golden Boot winners because they end up in the EFL in January. But if not, I think those early front runners are going to stay where they are.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I look at Dinanga and I've always thought he's a good striker. I was quite surprised when he left Altrincham to go to Gateshead. And it was someone that I thought he'd be a bit of a prospect for Halifax in the future. And Gateshead seem to be good at finding, these hidden gems strikers wise. They had a few issues last season after Langstaff and Scott left, but they actually found Rob Elliott going forward. Danny Elliott, who's obviously gone to Scunthorpe since, and he did well there. But they also then had the likes of Dinanga who came in and scored, and he's really come on this season. McCallum, you just know every season he's going to be up there, don't you? If he's in a team and he's getting game time, he's a proven goal scorer at this level. The likes of McCallum, Cheek, they've been around the block for a long time now. But Cardwell's one for me where I've always thought he's a good striker. He's always been a handful for Southend. Maybe he's not scored enough goals for them, but this season he's come on leaps and bounds. He's still a handful, but he's those chances that he were missing in the previous seasons, he's now turning into goals, and he's a big reason why Southend have done so well so far. Next person who's come in, Hayden Super Warburton. Yeah, we remember that. Solihull fans, they'll be enjoying him. I think he's playing well for them at the moment. And then Paul Leeser's coming here.
Even all comprehensive win by Chesterfield on Tuesday. It was they keep finding these results, don't they, Luke? Chesterfield, and I think they are definitely going to be the team to beat, as we've always said.
Yeah, they certainly are. I know that's a question that we're going to come on to. Can Chesterfield break 100 points? Because I had a stat like here. If I can actually find it, yeah, it's here. Chesterfield have dropped 7 points in a total of 42. Last seat they've currently got at the moment. Chesterfield have currently got
35
right on my head now. How many points?
35 points, yeah.
35 points at the moment. Now, Notts County and Wrexham last season at this point, I worked it out. Now, I'm dedicated to this podcast, guys. Notts County had 33 points after 14 games last season, and Wrexham had 30 points. Obviously, both of those broke the 100 points. Both got over 100 points. Could you see Chesterfield with there being no real serious content? Maybe Barnet, you could say, so maybe that's a bit disrespectful, but no contender out there that I think is capable of getting 100 points. Could you see them being a side that do it? Because at the moment, they're well on track to break the all-time record.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you say Wrexham had 30 points and Notts had 32. Well, if you look at Chesterfield, Barnet and Solihull, they've all got 30 points or more.
Yeah.
So that's not to say that not even 3 of those could get the 100-point mark. The way that they're playing at this present time, Barnet pulled out a result in the last minute against AFC Fylde on the weekend, on Tuesday night. Chesterfield have done it constantly. Solihull, I think, are still unbeaten. So I think definitely not. And we didn't say this at the beginning of the season, did we? I don't think we all thought it might be a little bit more even and someone might not break 100. But Chesterfield just start to seeming to start to sort of steamroll a little bit and do a little bit like Wrexham did. They don't light up the league in terms of the way they play football. That was more Notts County's sort of bag, but they are just getting results. And to only drop 7 points in the last 42 is an incredible achievement. And Barnet and Solihull are staying on their tails as we speak. And I think those teams, as much as it pains me to say it with Barnet, it's they're a good side and they're going to be up there.
They certainly are. I think it's hard, it feels like we're kind of not giving the likes of Gatesheads, Altrinchams, Bromleys, Solihull's, Barnets the respect because there's so much to talk about on the lower side of the league as well as. But these sides, none of them particularly have, no disrespect, massive fan bases. None of them have lots of money, compared to the likes of Chesterfield and what we've previously had with Wrexham, Notts County. Solihull, yes, I do believe have quite a lot of backing behind them. Bromley, Altrincham, Gateshead do the business smart, but I wouldn't say they're particularly wealthy clubs at this level. Same with Barnet. So I think, they deserve a lot of respect for what they're doing at the moment. Ian's come in and then said, Luke, don't do it. I was there. Well, fair play for going all that way. And then Mr. Luke's come in.
There goes my ears.
There you go. Oh, fair enough then. Just because Gateshead probably haven't had, well, they might have missed. You'll have to come in with if you've had any comebacks, Luke, in the past. You just batter people 6-0. You don't need to come back. And then Callum's coming Chesterfield v Ebbsfleet for me. Next one's here.
From Matthew, Halifax fan. Unlucky Woking fans, but what a save from Sam Johnson and finished by Golden.
And then Kez has come in and said Peterborough at home 5-4. Fair enough. That's a bit of a mental game. And then Ian came in and also said, Luke, you beat League Two leaders. Yeah, of course, you're top of the league. It's good to see that. You know, there's a lot of potential at the likes of Notts, Wrexham, Stockport, even Grimsby. And then next person in,
Robert who's a Chesterfield fan. Hello, Robert. Robert who. Hello, Robert. He says evening, guys. So evening to you too.
And then Stingem's come in and said, they're all coming in, all the comebacks now. 2-1 down versus Ebbsfleet, National League South playoff final, and scored in the 121st minute and went on to win on pens. I need a Dorking fan to be in here because I know which one they talk about. I don't know if Lloyd and the Dorking fan TV is joining us tonight or not. And then we've had Mickey who's come in.
He says Frickley 3, Gateshead 4, 3-0 down, 91st minute. Davey Southend hit the winner. Frickley bricked our coach as we left their car park. Well, there you go. Frickley clearly didn't take it quite as well as other teams have taken a beating against Gateshead.
And then Simon's come in and said Chesterfield rested 6 players and still beat. Yeah, that for me, I think it shows when they beat sides like Bromley quite comfortably, to be fair. With 6 players rested, why they are proper title contenders, because last season that's where they would have dropped points. I did see that they didn't manage to win at their bogey side, though, did they, in Maidenhead at the weekend. Dale's come in.
Aldershot away in playoffs, coming back from 3-1 down in a penalty shootout to win for Ebbsfleet United up the Fleet. Hello, Dale. Nice to see you online as a Fleet fan.
And then we've had, I believe it's a Southend fan, and said, hello, guys. Bromley is a tragic draw. Yeovil for away for me. And then we've had Tom who's come in.
Solihull of Biggleswade, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the lowest ranked team in the North draw. So they'll give you a good game, Tom, but I think you're going to be too strong for them. But yeah, that will definitely be their sort of cup final, I'd imagine.
And then we've had David who's come in and said, Western-super-Mare away from Maidenhead. Fans are happy as it's a new place to go drinking. And then Matthew's come in.
Our luck in the cup has been horrific lately. Borehamwood away in the first round last 2 seasons.
I know when we were speaking about Eastleigh, they're another side, because I think, Paul, we can both agree we weren't keen on Hill being appointed as the permanent manager. And I don't think in our group chat many people were keen on him being the permanent manager. But at the moment, Eastleigh have won 4 of the last 6.
Yeah.
And I've averaged over 2 goals a game in that time. And that's since, he's been appointed. So for you, do you think that, you wouldn't be looking at a permanent man? Well, do you think that is the right decision, making him a permanent manager?
I mean, we spoke about this last week, didn't we? And I mean, he's picked up another win on, the Saturday and then the Tuesday, about having these sort of interim managers, caretaker managers, temporary managers, whatever you want to call them, that the clubs call them. They always start well and then they'll get sacked by 6, 7, 8 months' time. So, it's really the thing with Richard Hill is that he knows the club, he knows the players. There's probably a bit of continuity in and around the sort of training ground and the environment. And clearly the players have adapted to him, because although they've won 3 in the last 6, they drew 1 as well. Sorry, 4. They've only lost 1 in the last 6. 1 was a draw. So, listen, as long as it keeps going, I don't think they're going to change it.
Yeah, it's fair though, isn't it? That really, because if a manager's not playing, if a manager's doing well, then why would you change him? The players are clearly behind him, and they looked a decent side at Halifax, I thought, when they beat us. If Oldham want Millington, they can come and get him. And then we've also had Southend fan who's come in.
Edgil. I remember saying half as a joke that Cardwell for Golden Boot is free money. If he gets the ball in the box, which he will with Bridge on the left, the man is guaranteed to score, which clearly he's showing that already with the amount of goals he's got. And I think it will only get better for him if Southend can get reinforcements in their squad and probably have more than just Bridge giving him the service.
That's what's going to be interesting, though, isn't it? To see what Southend do now, because they've got a minus 10-point deduction. If they win on Saturday, they can actually go out of the relegation zone, which is extremely impressive with what's been going on behind the scenes and the minus 10-point deduction. What do you think Southend's ambitions could be this season then? Because I would say the way they're going and how open the league is, the playoffs, I wouldn't say is out of reach. I still don't think they'll make the playoffs, if that makes sense, but I still think it would be an aim that I wouldn't put past this Southend squad. What about you?
No, I mean, they must be, Kevin Mayer and Darren Curry must be looking at now and thinking, right, we know we're going to carry on the season. I don't know what their thought process was, but, up until Wednesday when they probably didn't know whether they were going to survive or not. It was always likely it was going to happen because a club like that shouldn't go to the wall, but you never know until it does. But now they've just got a bit of stability. The trick with Kevin Mayer and Darren Curry is to get those boys and those lads playing as well as they've been playing. Now there is a bit of stability. I don't want them to take the foot off the gas for whatever reason, because they seem to have shown a real load of metal to sort of do what they're doing with everything that's going on. The other thing that Kevin Mayer's got to be considering is, yes, he's going to need reinforcements because he's got 2 or 3 on the bench. They're probably being patched up and they're being played out of position potentially. And he does need reinforcements. But what he doesn't want those reinforcements to do is upset the balance and how the team have been playing. He needs something that will complement what they've already done. Because if they do that, Luke, then they've got a massive chance of pushing on towards that playoffs. If they just keep winning, you never know where it might take them. But I think short term, they're probably not out of the woods yet, I would guess, because there's going to be an awful lot that has to be sorted out behind the scenes with the new ownership, with a bit of investment in the ground, getting it up to scratch. So I can't imagine they're just going to be piling loads of money in from day one.
Yeah, I get it.
It'll be a bit of a slow burner. So again, it's just a bit of stability, a bit of reinforcement in the squad, and then who knows where they might go.
Well, every side has a bad, period of form, don't they? And I don't think Southend, although what's been happening, they haven't had that yet, but they will at some point go on a losing streak. No matter how good you are, you always lose 1 or 2 games or drop the standard that you expect. So, for example, Wrexham and Notts both had periods last season where they struggled. I think Wrexham's were at the start of the season, and Notts Counties might have actually been at the start when they were drawing a lot of games. And as the season went on, they managed to turn those draws into wins. So I think for Southend, at some point, that will come where they lose like 3 games on the bounce. Now, they're already 10 points behind. I would say you need about between 70 and 75 points usually, isn't it, for the playoffs? That means Southend need 85. And that's like finishing 4th on average. So basically at the start of the season, Southend needed to aim to finish 4th. In the past, that's been winning the title standard. But so, yeah, they are quite far behind. And then we've had evening, gents, Alty versus Shotts. Good, close game on Tuesday. Disappointed that we came away with nothing, but can see why Alty are up there. Con Clark, very impressive. He certainly is. I think we both can agree when we saw him return, we thought that's a marquee signing for Altrincham. But just on Aldershot's side of things, they're a side that might be looking at up at the table for once rather than behind looking over the shoulder. Because I think they were a very, very good side. A little bit inconsistent, but they're better than what they have been in the past, and they've got some very good players there, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The inconsistency of them is probably what's going to hold them back. They've got quite a young team. I would suggest probably slightly inexperienced at National League level from looking at the players that Widgington's brought in. even if you think about the lad he's brought, Tolaj brought him from Fulham. He's brought in lads from his neck of the woods around Lowestoft, Kings Lynn, and National League South, National League North players. So if they can keep that squad together, because I've seen them earlier this season, I thought I was very impressed with how they sort of contained Wealdstone and let them play, and broke forward and played on the break and exploited the spaces in behind and all that sort of thing. So a very good football team. Inconsistency is the key to where they're not probably getting to where they want to be. But I think if they keep the manager, which they haven't been doing in the last few years, and they keep the squad, then I can see them not necessarily this year, but next year building on the experience of this year and doing better. So, they're heading in the right direction, that's for sure. Joe's
come in and he said, I honestly think the only reason Notts and Wrexham got 100-point plus last year was because they had to. If we carry on like this, we'll drop off once we are clear. And then Ryan's coming.
Scunthorpe are alive. Come on, up the iron. Yes, Ryan Ashmore. I think we would all agree that we're happy to see Scunthorpe stay and be able to compete in the National League North, because no doubt with the squad they've got, they'll probably be back in the National League next year. And let's just hope the man with 4 names doesn't appear anywhere else and try and take on a football club.
Yeah, I think we can both agree with that. But yeah, Scunthorpe, I want to see them back. I love covering sides like that. I love covering your Dawkins, your Maiden. It's all unique. But a side like Scunthorpe, one, it's a good away day for Halifax. They're well supported, which I think brings more to the league. As well, when you're getting higher teams with big crowds, it brings more to the league, I think. And also, they're just a good side to cover. A lot of their fans tune in still, like Ryan does. So, it'd be good to see them get back into the National League. And I'm hoping Scarborough do as well, just for the away day. And then he's also coming in and said, Scunthorpe versus Dorking last year, 85th minute winner from George Tate, of all people, came away with a cracked rib and a black eye. Is that because of the limbs? And then Ash has come in.
This is Alty away for Oldham in the FA Cup. Very hard game. Yeah, I mean, listen, FA Cup ties, all the league form can go out the window. Is it a time where managers play their strongest team? Do they rotate the squad? Do they want to cut run? Don't they want to cut run? Where are they in the league that might affect them having to play more games? So, I mean, FA Cup ties are always an unusual one to sort of predict. But I think, altering away is difficult for anyone because they can play good football and they're confident at home. So, very hard game there, Ash. I don't disagree with you.
Guys, the people have been putting in their comments tonight. We've got good numbers joining us once again. It's great to see. But also, we've had that many comments that have come in tonight, which is brilliant, is the fact that we're nearly 45 minutes in and we haven't even got on to the predictions yet. But I believe we'll come back to your comments shortly. But I think we do need to get on with the predictions. So we'll have a look at the table anyway. We both had quite a poor week. The gap's got even closer, and it's very, very nervy times for myself. 67 points for me. I think I got 4 points. Did I get 3 points? I can't see because of the logo. I was on 63, so I've got 4 points, and then you got 5 points. Not the best, but you've closed the gap, haven't you?
Like I said, Luke, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. So keep chipping away. I know we didn't do Tuesday nights, haven't we? So we go again on for Saturday's set of fixtures to see how we get on.
I need to get through this week, and then we've got a break because we've got FA Cup fixtures, and I'm not even going to ask us to put it. You don't get them correct because you know more about that side of things than me. So we're not going to have a go at predicting those, but we'll be coming back in about 2 weeks' time, and we'll be doing the rest. I need to just stay in the lead. Get to Saturday night when I'm counting all the predictions, how well we've done. I don't care if you've closed the gap by 1. I just need to be in the lead so I can recoup. But anyway, we'll get on with the predictions then. Everyone as well, please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Over 50 of you watching at the moment. Also, the majority of you, of course, watch this afterwards as a podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe yourselves as well. and let us know your predictions and your thoughts in the comments below. And also, I've probably said this before, but I've had a few people messaging me saying, "Oh, can we turn this into like a Spotify podcast as well and put it on like all the podcast networks, streaming places, so like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc." If you want that, either drop a comment below if you're not watching live, or drop a comment in the live chat, and we'll put it out. We'll probably put it out purposely on like a Saturday morning. So then, for everyone who's obviously travelling to the long distance away games, you can obviously put it on and tune in to that as well. But anyway, we need to get on with the predictions then now. Get all your predictions in. We'll put them on the screen as we go through, and also get your points across as well as we go on to each game. A lot of talking points tonight, and some very interesting games to preview. Maybe not many derbies or anything like that, but there's a lot of, I think, entertaining games for this game week. Starting with Bournemouth versus Chesterfield then. We've previously mentioned that Chesterfield are on track to break the record for the best side to get the most points in this division. Of course, Bournemouth actually got an impressive win at home against Hartlepool during midweek, which I think they needed. They're a side that I think, for me, it's going to be interesting to see where they finish. I personally think that the league's just got that much stronger. It's not the fact that they've got weaker or anything. The league's just got a lot stronger, and the sides have obviously improved, and they haven't been able to keep up with it, and that's why they're further down the league. But this is certainly going to be one of the more difficult games for Chesterfield, isn't it?
It always is. Bournemouth historically have been a team that defend very well, don't let many goals in, but they haven't been prolific in front of goal. You know, they've had the odd striker, but if you look at it here, they've let 20 goals in and only scored 15, and that's where their problem is. They're letting goals in, whereas traditionally they've always been strong at the back, massively strong at the back. I know they've had injuries in the first part of the season, but they are very disappointing. I think what the problem is, Luke, is, and I said this last week when I read their programme notes that I saw posted online from their chairman, and he was sort of bemoaning the fact that the recruitment hasn't been strong enough in the summer, and it's as much his fault as the manager's. Is that effectively, like, because the league has got stronger, it feels like it always gets stronger. They've stood still, and other teams have got better. Yeah. And because of that, they find themselves in 17th place, which is a very, very unfamiliar territory for Bournemouth. And I don't think it's going to get any better for them on Saturday. I think Chesterfield are going to go there. The fact you go to Bournemouth, they're defensively, they're very good. That playing surface is unbelievable. It's the best. It's the best in the league. It's looked after by the Arsenal ground staff. It would do well in a Premier League sort of arena, their pitch, and that probably helps other teams because they can go there and can play a bit of football. So, Bournemouth aren't backed by the biggest crowds either, so I don't know whether they find that a challenge or not, or whether that's a bit of a blessing because they're not doing so well. But I think Chesterfield are again going to be too strong and will win 3-1 on Saturday.
Remember to get your predictions in, guys. But of course, it's just one of those games where you have that instinct about you that you think Bournemouth, it's a game where they'll pull something out of the bag and get a result. And I think we saw it. Even though I think Chesterfield will go on to win the league quite convincingly, they still drop points at the likes of Maidenhead. They've lost to Altrincham. Yes, you're going to have bad games and good games. You can't read too much into that. But Bournemouth's a very similar kind of game. Away from home, unique playing surface. Yes, it's very good, like you've mentioned, but Bournemouth will be well aware of that. They're very good defensively, and I think they have got a good striker in Unlove. So I could see this game being 1-1, and Bournemouth have just defeated Hartlepool, so they're going to be full of confidence, and it's about time that they gain a bit of momentum. I know Bournemouth have drawn quite a lot of games so far as well. And Joe's also said, like Maidenhead, we've never won at Bournemouth. So that's another stat for you there. And we'll move on to the next game then, and of course, it's my team. I saw Paul was in the live chat. If that's the Paul I'm thinking of, who goes to literally every single Halifax match, who lives down south, I'm sure I'll be off to this one. Now, obviously, of course, I went to Ebbsfleet last season, and we lost in the FA Cup. it's still one of those games where I don't go in with much confidence because it's just like it's a long way to go. But then again, we've just defeated Woking and we're very good away from home. It's kind of flipped compared to last season where we're good at home. We were good at home and we were weak away. Where it's flipped to where we're good away this season and not so good at home. For this game, Ebbsfleet had 1 win in 7. And, 3 of our 4 wins this season have all been away. We've had players that have come into the side. Hotte, who's just added so much quality to our side now. We're very good away from home. Ebbsfleet like to keep a lot of the ball, which will, I think, suit us, and we'll be able to catch them on the break. And I think from set pieces, that's why we can also catch them. So for me, I can see us getting a result here because Ebbsfleet aren't in form at the moment. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Ebbsfleet win. Halifax win, sorry. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone for 2-2. Now, I don't want to break this to you, Luke, but Halifax have only got 1 win in 7 as well. So they're both teams that are bang out for. The only thing is Halifax did win the other night away from home at Woking, which is always a good result. Going to Woking at any time in the season is good. So, so Halifax are going to have a bit of confidence there, but their inconsistency is the big thing, isn't it? So I've gone with the fact, Ebbsfleet are at home. I think it's going to be a draw. I mean, Halifax haven't scored more than 2 goals in the last 9 or 10 games, if not all season in the match. So I think Ebbsfleet are capable of that. Polian needs to start scoring again. We all talked about him being in the golden boot shout, but he might be finding that step up to after injury just a bit more difficult than we first thought. We'd have to wait and see how he gets on next few weeks. But 2-2 for that game.
Next game for me, I think game of the game week for me. 2 extremely entertaining sides. 2 sides that I think should inspire the majority of the division because but neither side have never been in the Football League. They've been building to a start of a season like this for a long time, and they've finally managed to produce. The question is the fact that are they going to keep this momentum going? Are they going to keep up to it and competing with the likes of your Barnetts, your Solihuls? Is one of them ever going to drop off? Of course, Gateshead this season have scored 34 goals in 14 matches. The joint highest goal scorers in the division. Oldham have only had 2 defeats all season in 14 and have scored 26 goals themselves, which makes them the 3rd highest goal scorers in the division, joint 3rd, that is. Both have got a lot going forward. And I think if there was a game that, I'd want to see televised, this would definitely be it. Because, at the sides that I'd love to see Halifax play like either of these sides, and 2 sides that are well managed as well. But I can't really split them, to be honest. So I'm going to have to go for a 2-2 draw. It's another cop-out for myself, but I can't split them. They're just 2 entertaining sides, and this should be a cracking game, in my opinion. I don't think a year ago I'd be saying this is a cracking game, so it just shows how much the 2 sides have come on. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone for a high-scoring Gateshead 3-2 win. I mean, if you look at, I've just been looking here, you analyse what Gateshead have done. To be up in and around the playoffs, someone like any team, but someone like Gateshead need to look at beating the likes of Wealdstone, Oxford City, Maidenhead, Kidderminster. They beat Eastleigh 6-0 just before the Eastleigh manager got. So with all due respect to the teams in and around that sort of bottom half, Gateshead have done what they needed to do and beaten them. It's been quite a friendly set of matches. In terms of Wealdstone, Oxford City, Maidenhead, Kidderminster in amongst them. No disgrace to losing at Bromley away, which is what they did a couple of weeks ago. But that's their only loss in 9 games, and they drew with Halifax after going down to 10 men. So they managed to get it up. They drew against Oldham, who are one of the big teams in the league, allegedly. So, Gateshead are doing everything that you would expect of a team to be consistently up near the top. Oldham, I haven't seen them at the Vale when they were really short of numbers. I think they named a goalie on the bench because they didn't have quite enough outfield players. Have really turned a corner from that day we saw it out. And don't get me wrong, they put a massive shift in. They were dead on their feet, and clearly they've reinforced with a couple of loan signings and they're back on track. And like you said, I've got to agree, Luke. 2 very, very good footballing sides, play the right way, score goals, are liable to let a goal in or two. It makes it perfect sort of combination for a 0-0 draw, doesn't it? So I've gone Gateshead, Altrincham 2.
Right, so someone's come and said Gateshead have been in the Football League. Have I been corrected there? Because I generally have they, Paul? You'll remember.
Possibly. I mean, I'll go with the knowledge of the fans that tune into this. I wouldn't disagree with them. So
yeah,
it's going to be a few years ago now, but I wouldn't disagree with them.
Yeah, I do apologise if I've got that incorrect. Mr. Luke will come in at some point and correct me. I'm sure of that. Next game then that we've got is Hartlepool versus Eastleigh. Hartlepool are a side that I think are quite a big talking point tonight because, you know, they're a side that start the season quite well and have fallen off a cliff since they've had that injury, since they've had those injuries. Hartlepool have had 1 win in 7. They haven't actually scored in a single goal in the previous 3 matches. You could say that goes back to 4 because the previous goal when they beat Dagenham away, which was their last win that they had, was actually an own goal. Yeah. And Manny Disariwe, who's also one of their main goal scoring threat, who we thought to start the season, that's a perfect signing. He was on fire. He hasn't scored since the 2nd of September. So, yeah, they've certainly fallen off a cliff, Hartlepool. They're a side for me that I'd be looking at if I was them looking at reinforcements. But what's difficult now is all the majority of the good players, I think, who have got a big name, have found a club. So Hartlepool, are a side that are going to struggle to find those players to replace them unless it's on loan. And for that reason, the way Eastleigh are playing at the moment, we've spoke a bit about them with the threat they've got going forward at the moment. I actually think Eastleigh are going to win this. You know, Eastleigh have scored 9 goals in the past 4 games. So for me, I think Eastleigh will win this 2-0. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone 3-1 to Eastleigh. I mean, it is. You talk about Gateshead and Altrincham, 2 teams that are banging form. I mean, this is the polar opposite. Isn't it? One's banging form, one isn't. You know, so I think Eastleigh are going to be too strong. They're riding on the wave of 3 wins in 4. Solid, as you say, Hartlepool 1 win in 7, which was a gifted to them with an own goal. So they're struggling, aren't they, Hartlepool? And to be honest, I saw them play against Wealdstone on the 2nd of September when Disariwe scored. And they limped over the line against Wealdstone that day, and they've only won 1 since, which is that Dagenham game. So I don't think even sort of further back that they were probably showing the form that the results maybe were getting. But it's now sort of flipped on its head. So listen, we said just earlier, every team goes through a bad patch. This might be Hartlepool's bad patch, and they pick the form up into the new sort of later end of this year, into the new year, and go on a bit of a run, but they're in a wretched run of form, and I think Eastleigh are going to sort of carry that on Saturday and win 3-1.
Mr. Luke is still here. He's probably watching 2 podcasts at once because, of course, the Gateshead podcast has also gone live. They always go live at 8 o'clock, so he's probably still watching 2 podcasts. I know that he said that he does that when it turns 8 o'clock, but he said Gateshead were voted out of the Football League in 1960. Possibly due to financial problems. And then Ali has tuned in late, but a Woking fan. Fair play for tuning in because, of course, you know I'm a Halifax fan. I think we've beaten Woking in the past 3 visits there. Hi, Luke. Humbled by Paul's team last week. Your Shaman this week, and now facing Southend currently on Cloud 9 this weekend. Such in the life of a Woking fan at the moment. They're another side, so inconsistent. Aside from me that I could see being one of those sides that just falls short, but knowing Woking, they'll find some form out of nowhere, and they'll come back and do well. Next game, then your team, then Paul, Kidderminster versus Wealdstone. What a game this is! I'll say my piece because you'll have a lot to say on Wealdstone. Kidderminster have got the worst home record in the division. Wealdstone have the worst away record in the division. Neither side, Wealdstone have not won away from home, and Kidderminster have not won at home. Kidderminster don't score many goals. So for me, I'm going for a 0-0 draw for this one. Both sides have got their issues respectively from playing away and playing at home, and it's not one of those crackers, I would say, this game. Bailey Hobson's, I think, improved that Kidderminster side slightly going forward. He scored, and of course, Kidderminster coming into this game on the back of a good win away from home as well. I'm going for a 0-0 draw for this one. How do you see it going?
I think the only bonus for this game is that Wilson are going to go back to Kidderminster for the first time in a very long time, having been adversaries in the old Gola League and the conference as it was back in the 80s. So I think many fans are looking forward to visiting a new ground, but I think that's maybe about it. I think Wilson will win 2-1, and that's not because of Wilson. I think we've got to start looking to try and get some points, and this has got to be one of those games where we've got a target. It may stop the rot away from home, because I think you're quite right, Luke. What have we got? 17 points, and 15 of them are away from home, from down at the Vale. We haven't won since last March. The stats go on, so we got to stop the rot, because otherwise we will start sinking towards that bottom end. And as much as fans turn around and say, well, you're the best team we play and you play great football, that doesn't matter when you're near the bottom. So we got to stop the rot a little bit. I think hopefully Saturday will be that point, and it's certainly one of those games we got to target. But Kidderminster will go in with a lot of heart, playing against Wilstone, a team they will target, saying we've got to get points off them, similar to us. So, I don't think it's going to be a classic in as much as with goals, but I think Wilson will win 2-1.
I know we've had that in the past where sides have said, "Oh, you were one of the best sides I've seen come to our place," or you're very good defensively. But for me, I used to take that as "Oh, that's a massive positive." That sure, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't, because then the following week you can lose, and them say that you're the worst side that we've seen. I remember you was it last season when we came to your place and you said you were one of the worst Halifax sides that we've seen. Then when you came to our place, you'd probably say one of the best that we've seen when away from home that season. I wonder, just on the topic of how opposition fans rate us, etc. Ali, if you're still here, I need to know what you thought of Halifax, because I had a working fan, and he said Halifax, when they were 1-0 up and not a good side, and Woking weren't playing well. And he still said that when we went on to win. He said, you're not playing very nice football. Your goalkeepers basically kept you in it. So I'd like to hear what other Woking fans have to say on that. Next game then. Now, I had a comment that came in on Facebook just now on Maidenhead, and I want to read it out because I think it's a Maidenhead fan who said this before we get on to the game. And he said, haven't even looked at it. Maidenhead to lose, though, obviously. And I feel like changing my prediction now, but Maidenhead are just one of those sides, I'm going to be honest, they have no right to win any game in this division, if that makes sense, because of them being part-time, because of the budget. Of course, they keep proving us wrong every week. But for me, Rochdale, I think are a good side. Maidenhead have had 2 draws recently that you probably wouldn't expect them to get anything from those last 2 games, but they have done. But they've still only scored 2 goals in a total of 6 games. They're 1 point above relegation. And usually what happens with Maidenhead is they start the season well, they're well above the drop zone, and as the season goes on, they get closer and closer, and then just manage to survive. For me, this season, to be that close at this early stage is an indication to say that they're on their way down. And if that fan has tuned in now, he won't be happy with that, and he'll be hoping they can prove me wrong. But for me, I think this season is the time for you to drop down. Only Kidderminster have scored less goals than them this season. Rochdale are a good side, I think. The duo win. They're not in the best of form. So I think 2-1 to Rochdale. Still a difficult place to go. Chesterfield saw that. So for me, I think Rochdale was great through this game. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Luke. I think the thing that Rochdale are going to need to improve is a bit more consistency, turn those draws into wins and those losses into draws, because they're 7th at the moment, 7th or 8th. So, if you look at their last set of result: lost, draw, won, lost, drew, one, lost, drew, lost. So this should be a win. You look at 3, 3, and 3. But I think just consistency, maybe Rochdale's downfall towards the end of the season. But I think they will get a win at Maidenhead. I think they'll win 1-0. They don't score loads of goals, Rochdale. I know they got 4 against Barnet, but they don't score lots of goals. Maidenhead don't score lots of goals, but again, Rochdale don't let many in. So a low-scoring 1-0 win for the Dale.
Oldham v Dagenham then. Dagenham, they're a side we haven't spoke about yet. And they are in serious trouble. It was them and Solihull at the start of the season that everyone expected to be some of the biggest underperformers this season. Solihull have gone down a different route and proved us wrong. But Dagenham at the moment, they're 1 point above the relegation zone. Now, Dagenham's ambitions is to get back in the Football League and should be aiming for the playoffs, I think, with the budget they got. But the only way they're going, they're not going up, they're going down the way they're playing. It's relegation form at the moment. They're sitting in 19th. And they're playing against an Oldham side that's unbeaten in 5. Yes, I've had 2 mediocre results, drawing to you guys and to Maidenhead, but them being at home, it's not the kind of game for me that I think Dagenham would be wanting to try climb up that table. And for that reason, I think Oldham will win this game 2-0. How do you see this one going? And what's your thoughts on Dagenham's situation?
Do you know what? I'm really surprised. I mean, I've just looked at I'm looking at their results here, and actually they've only won 3 games all season, and they all came on the bounce. So one impressively was against Barnet, who've proven that they're they're going to be one of the teams to beat. They beat us at the Vale, one of the only team to take points off us, I think, at the Vale this season, and they beat Fylde, which you'd expect them to do, and they have to. But honestly, though, when I saw them play, they were so organised, they were so spirited. They looked a threat with Vincent in midfield. We've spoken about him before. I'm shocked at what I saw over that 90 minutes that they've now, apart from them beating Fylde, that they've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 games without a win, and out of those, only 2 points, 2 draws. Really, really surprised because I think they've got a really good manager in Ben Strevens. He knows the league as a player and a manager. I think they've recruited quite well. I'm at a loss to see why they are just so bad at this present time, and I genuinely don't think that's going to change. As much as Oldham have had a bit of a meltdown in the last week, drawing with us and Maidenhead, they've got to go some to not get something out of Dagenham on Saturday. They are at home at Boundary Park, so I think that goes in their favour as well, and I think they'll win 2-0.
John's coming, who's a Dagenham fan, so it'll be good to get his perspective. Oldham 3-0, unfortunately. We were good for an hour yet Tuesday, but we can't score even with an open goal at the moment. We mentioned that on last week's podcast when we were talking about the issues with Inyef and Young obviously being out at the moment. If you think about it, they've lost a lot of strikers over the last couple of seasons. McCallum was there. Effing Young's out injured. Belanta was there. There was another lad who I think has gone to... I think he went to Bournemouth. I'm trying to think. There was another striker who's gone out of my head. Who, sorry?
Yeah, two of their lads went to Bournemouth. I can't remember the name. But
there was Robinson. No.
Robinson left from midfield.
Yeah. And then there's another striker as well who's gone. So if you think about, obviously, Junior Marias as well, he's gone to Notts County. So there's another players as well. But there's a lot of players to think about going forward that they've lost, and they haven't particularly replaced them. So that'd be my issue with Dagenham at the moment. That's just one final thing on Dagenham is, do you think Strevens is the right man for the job? Because I would say, who are you going to get in who's better? That it's becoming a bit of a regular theme. Dal McMahon, I wasn't keen on him at all. And you let him go. Ben Strevens, has been a lot of high hopes for him at Dagenham, but he's not getting the results at the moment. Would you say you'd keep him in, or would you be looking elsewhere?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it, Luke? I really like Ben Strevens. I think he's got a lot about him at this level, and he did very, very well at Eastleigh with probably not a massive amount of investment, maybe a little bit, but not a huge amount. With a small fan base, you'd like to think Dagenham are in a better position maybe than Eastleigh in terms of infrastructure and support. And and possibly investment. I know Stuart Donald's down at Eastleigh now, but yeah, I'm just at a loss as to why they're not doing so well. But I think you're right. Losing their strikers is a big thing. He had a big turnover, didn't he? From January onwards or February onwards, whenever he came in, they shelled a lot of players. They did in the summer. Their recruitment has been a bit sporadic. They've got the lad who used to play for Ipswich and Colchester in recently, didn't they?
Yeah.
See where Freddie.
No, what was he called?
Freddie. I can't.
Who?
Someone can help us out. I can't remember his bloody surname. But yeah, I mean, they've got him in.
Freddie Sears, that's it.
Freddie Sears. They've got Freddie Sears in. I've just looked now. Charlie Kendall's their centre forward. Works very hard from when I saw him. Scored 2 goals in the whole season. You need strikers to get you 3 or 4 goals. You need a midfield player to back you up, and it's just not happening for them. So I think they got to stick with Strevens. They haven't pushed the button yet, even after that wretched run of form. Changing again is just not going to probably do them any favours. So we'll see how they go on the next, maybe in October, and sort of reevaluate from there.
They're always underperforming. Every season you say they should be aiming for playoffs. This will be the season that they will, and they never do. And I think more and more sides every season are catching up with them, because Dagenham, when they first came down, were a big dog in this division with a big budget, and sides of I think are obviously getting bigger budgets and increasing. The crowds are getting better, and Dagenham's like a few former Football League sides, like your Barnetts, probably your Halifax, your Dagenham's, the former Football League sides. Their crowds haven't skyrocketed like you might expect when you look at sides like Eastleigh and Bromley off the field doing so well with the crowds. And it feels like now you look at them and you just think mid-table, and that's what you'd say now. But you'd probably at some point be saying they're in a relegation scrap here, and they need to find a striker, but so many clubs do. And there's clubs higher up who need a striker, like Hartlepool, like Halifax, and at the moment you'd much rather go to a side like that who could still get in the playoffs than a Dagenham side where it's a bit toxic, and maybe potentially they could be in a massive relegation battle at the moment. But Ali came in, went to my original question earlier, and he said, I thought you, Sherman, didn't show up too much of a threat, and your veteran keeper is solid and made some good saves. Yeah, I got a similar kind of reply from the other working fan. A penalty and a shot across goal, which our keeper should have done better, has decided it, but that's football. Were you there, Luke? No, unfortunately not. I can't really get to Tuesday games that are like that far away because I'm at college. But in the future, hopefully. But yeah, at the moment I'm at college and stuff, so it's too hard to get to games like that. Yeah, everyone's coming with Freddie Sears now. And John's also said 7 players out at the moment. Strevs will turn it around, he said. We'll move on to the next game then. Oxford v Fylde. 2 sides with some of the worst defences in the league. Fylde actually have the worst defence, and I believe Oxford have the second worst defence as well, which for me screams quite an entertaining game. And I think on for a 3-2 Fylde win for this game. How do you see this one going?
I went with 2-2. Your archetypal 6-pointer early on in the season, Luke. If Oxford City get your 3 points, then that sort of drags them, could drag them up to sort of 17th, 18th. Fylde get their 3 points. That takes them nearer to sort of the out of the bottom 4. Obviously, you have to depend on how Southend and Kiddie go. But if Fylde do win, it brings on to a point above Oxford City. So I think both teams will not want to lose because of the even though it is only October, what's on the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But both teams are very, very liable to letting goals in, but they can. Oxford City can score goals. It's on the plastic of Oxford, but I've gone for 2-2 because I think they're both going to want to go for it, but they're both going to not want to lose. So I think a draw is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I get your point there on that, because there's a lot riding on this game. Both sides are in the relegation zone now, but of course a win would take them out of that zone. It's not like last season where at this point where, if you were bottom of the league, you were 4 or 5 points adrift of safety. there is an opportunity to climb out the relegation zone. So there is quite a lot riding on this game, even with it being so early. I think if Oxford lose this, there'd be some serious questions about, to be honest, we're probably just not good enough for this division. But if Files lose, you'd say there's even more pressure on them because they've got quite a fairly good budget. I was speaking to Fylde fans at the start of the season, and he was adamant that Fylde were going to be in and around the playoffs, and they're significantly underperforming at the moment. I know when we were giving our predictions, Paul, you got quite a lot of stick for that Fylde prediction, putting them just above safety, but at the moment, it doesn't even feel like they're going to achieve that. Of course, I've gone for Fylde to win this game. They can score more goals than Oxford. They've scored 20 goals this season, which shows that that's kind of just outside of the playoffs for goals for. But it's 32 goals against, which is the issues, and they need to rectify that very, very soon. We'll move on to the next game then. Solihull v Aldershot. Solihull are still wanting to keep that record, it seems, of being unbeaten for as long as possible. And for a side like Solihull, I think for any side, to still be unbeaten after 14 games says a lot, especially with the doubts that we both had at the start of the season. Aldershot, we've talked about them quite a lot, and them being a side that could be a bit of a dark horse and might sneak into the playoffs, but they're a bit too inconsistent. They'll want to bounce back after that Altrincham game because they didn't play too badly, but they still didn't manage to get the result. For me, Solihull clearly want to keep that unbeaten record, and Aldershot will be looking to try and get something here. So for me, I'd probably go for a 1-1 draw. The likes of Josh Stokes for Aldershot, he's a player that I think most sides in this division would want and crave for, and I think some sides in the higher leagues will be sniffing around very soon. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone with a Solihull win, 3-1. They are at home. They're obviously on a great run of form. I mean, it's interesting when you look at the league, Luke, because on Saturday, Solihull don't win. Barnet have got a very winnable game at Dorking, I would suggest. Chesterfield have got a very winnable game at Boreham Wood. Barnet and Chesterfield win and Solihull don't. All of a sudden, the gaps move to 5 to 8 to 5 and 8 points between first and second and third. So I don't think Solihull want to put any undue pressure on themselves, but they've got to keep winning. Your draws are okay, but if you're going to be nearer the top, even if they get a point, they're still not going to be. If Barnet lose, they're still going to be behind. So I think really the pressure is on them to get the wins to keep on the tails of Barnet and Chesterfield. I don't think they'll lose their record this week. As much as I've said, Aldershot have done very well. They're not as consistent as Solihull, and I think Solihull will pick the win up.
Solihull are a very defensive-minded side, aren't they? They're good defensively, and that's they build from the back. And someone like Josh Kelly's really come on, hasn't he? He's always been well known. He's someone that I've wanted at Halifax, and last season he were kind of in Sabah and Dallas's shadow, but this season with him being that main man, he's certainly come on, hasn't he? Woking v Southend then, slightly difficult one to call. Woking, I would say out of form, had a win before the Halifax match, but they're conceding a lot of late goals. Southend, there's a massive buzz around them at the moment. There's something that you mentioned earlier about them maybe dropping off. And that's something that I do think, they will have to manage with, because maybe before they had this takeover, it was more about the lack of pressure maybe when they were playing, because it were kind of like we're just playing for each other. There's no payment on the line. The fans don't really expect anything from us. Where now they've had a takeover and there's kind of no excuse apart from the fact they are limited on numbers, which will change soon, for them not to be picking up points like away at Woking if they're wanting to climb this division. And of course, it's an opportunity for Southend to get out of the relegation zone. So I've gone for a 1-0 Southend win. How do you see this one going?
2-0 Southend win. I mean, genuinely, and I can't remember the lad's name who follow Woking, who's online, but it's the poor as a team I've seen Woking put out that I saw a couple of weeks ago down at the Vale. Very, very surprised. Very, very surprised. Listen, they won 1 in 4, and that was against AFC Fylde, who we just talked about, who are sort of marooned at the bottom at the moment. If you look at their home form, they drew with Solihull, they drew with Ebbsfleet, they lost to York, and they've lost to Woking. To Halifax. So in the last 4 games, they've not won a game at home, and I don't think that's going to continue change on Saturday. Rather, I think Southend are going to be buoyed by this week's events. They'll have that new sort of oomph about them. I would imagine they may get a couple of bodies in before Saturday as well, which may help them. But I think Southend, with the connection they've got with the club, in terms of the fans and the players and what the players are doing, and the way that I sort of saw Woking were very disjointed. I know Darren Sale has changed his side around since I saw that Wealdstone game, brought some players back that weren't featured in that fixture. That hasn't changed their fortunes, really. I can't see Woking winning, and I'm really surprised that they're still just sitting outside the playoffs.
Yeah, they're certainly struggling, and I think someone's mentioned that Woking only have 13 to 14 players fit, which is actually less than Southend, which says a lot, doesn't it, about Woking's situation at the moment. Next game then, York versus Bromley. This is quite an interesting game because York, since Ardley's come in, they've got 10 points in 6 games, which you're just averaging just below 2 points per game, which I think 10 points in 6 games would get you in and around the playoffs. They've clearly turned a corner. Prior to Ardley coming in, they had 4 points in the previous 8. So they were averaging half a point a game, basically. Bromley come into this game after a loss. There's nothing bad about losing to Chesterfield, I'd say, away from home. But after you're on a brilliant run, it's still going to mentally, I think, affect you and put a little bit of pressure on you. And for me, York at the moment, they've pulled off some very good results. Dagenham away, Woking away. They've got some good points against the likes of Solihull, Boreham Wood. So for me, I can see York winning this game. And I'm going for a 1-0 York win. Akiniyemi is clearly scoring. You're not too keen on York, are you, at the moment, Paul? So I'll let you fire away on your thoughts on this game.
Listen, they vastly improved, but they still have only sort of won 2 in 6 or whatever it may 7. So they're still a work in progress, York, and I think Neil Ardley is going to turn that corner and get them going. Listen, Bromley, they've got to be the most informed team outside of Chesterfield. Surely they've lost 1 in 12, and that was against Chesterfield. So yeah, they're a cracking side considering. I saw them down away at Bromley early in the season, and it was a 1-1 draw, and they did look out of sorts, and I was really surprised. But I think it's just taken them a little bit of time to sort of decide that what his best 11 is. He plays a lot of youngsters who must be getting so much experience and confidence from how they're playing. And listen, I think Bromley are going to go there and they're going to win 2-1. They're definitely one of the dark horses on the run they're on to stay in those playoffs like they do most years. And I just hope they don't carry it on the week after when we play them away in the FA Cup. But there you go. So, yeah, I think Bromley are going to win 2-1. I think York are they're not pulling up trees, but they're a work in progress. They're doing better than they were. They couldn't do much worse under Mickey Morton, realistically for what they've got and what they're spending and what their expectations are. Their owner seems to have piped down a little bit on social media, so he's just let the...
No, you haven't, have you? You see him at Dagenham, he were putting like stickers up of like you've been uglied and stuff.
Oh, he's sort of letting the football do the talking a little bit more. So, we'll see. I don't think York will win on Saturday, but they'll give Bromley a good game. But I think Bromley will win 2-1.
He's one of those guys I'd love. I know you're not probably the biggest fan because of his time at Yeovil and some of the things that are a bit questionable about what he's done at York so far in your thought process and other fans' thought process as well. And he's I won't say eccentric, but he's quite open, and it's something that I respect that, and I would respect that when it's going well. It's when it doesn't go well, when maybe that's when the issues caused. But he's one of them. I think it'd be an interesting interview to do that, and hopefully one day we'll manage to get that sorted. But yeah, for me, I think York. I think they're more organised now. Ardley's kind of come in and said, "Look, I'm not here for any nonsense. We're going to be an organised, well-drilled side." Do I think they're going to make the playoffs this season? No. I think they're still short of players, I think, for that. Quality players, that is. But I think being at home to Bromley, they're clearly on form. They've got momentum. There'll be a big crowd there as well cheering them on. So I think, yeah, York will get through this game. Final game then to talk about. Dorking versus Barnet. Now, I usually say this would be a proper high-scoring game with the two sides, but Dorking have clearly improved defensively. I'm still going to say it's high-scoring. What seems to happen with Dorking, though, is when they lose a game, they very rarely bounce back from it. They go on a bit of a bad run. I think they've only once bounced back from a defeat this season. And if you look back at last season, what would happen is, they'd lose a game and then they'd lose a number of games. Is this going to be the same? Because losing to Kidderminster at home is a very, very poor performance. I think Mark White, I'd hate to be in that changing room if I were playing under Mark White, because he would have been off on one for this game. And, they'll be wanting to bounce back. But for me, Barnet have got too much. Barnet unbeaten in 5, scoring lots of goals. And for me, I think they're just a better side than Dorking, but it's certainly going to be an entertaining one. I'm going for a 3-1 Barnet win. How do you see this one going?
I think this could be not a coupon buster, but I think this could be an unusual scoreline. I think Dorking will get a draw out of Barnet 2-2. I mean, they're going to be bitterly disappointed they lost to Kidderminster. I think it was that Kidderminster's first win, they had to get points on the board and win somewhere, but I wouldn't suggest you haven't seen Dorking play the other week that would have been the game. But I just got a feeling that Barnet are very, very good sides. They got out of jail against AFC Fylde. Good teams win when they play badly, so fair play to them. I don't know. I just had a gut feel that I think this could be the game where you wouldn't expect it to go to form a little bit. And although I don't think Barnet will lose, I think it will be a 2-2 draw.
Fair enough then. So I think that closes off our predictions then. Just while we've got you there, please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Of course, if you're watching this afterwards, also get your thoughts in too. So thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Paul, once again, thank you for joining me.
No problem, Luke. Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah, it's good. It'll be interesting to see how Wheelstone get on. I'm hoping that I'm still in the lead in 2 weeks' time, because I'd hate to go behind, because I feel like if I went behind, there's no way I'd be coming back, to be honest. But you've somehow clawed it back in recent weeks. Also, thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. The numbers have been consistently high, which is, brilliant to see. And it's good to see a range of clubs as well. It's not being dominated by, the bigger clubs. There's fans from all over the spectrum of the division. So thank you very much for joining us. Let us know your thoughts below on anything to do with the National League. Once again, Paul, thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe. Also, I forgot to mention at the start, please vote for me in the Content Awards. Closing votes on Sunday. If you think I deserve to win, then vote for us below. Like I've said, we've grown as a channel so much in the last year or so. So, I can only thank you guys for that. And hopefully you can do me one last favour and vote for me in the Content Awards. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on for now. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.